Let's start with a scenario. I think everyone has felt this, like physically, even if you couldn't name it in the moment.
Hmm.
You're in a meeting, maybe it's a family dinner, and the conversation's fine, it's flowing, and then someone just drops a comment.
Right.
It's not quite an insult, but it's definitely not a compliment. It's a question that feels sharp, you know?
Uh-huh.
Like, oh, so we're still sticking with that strategy, are we?
Or, interesting choice of outfit for a client meeting. The air just leaves the room. You can feel the temperature drop.
My stomach drops with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because suddenly I'm not talking about the strategy or my clothes anymore. I'm scrambling, I'm over-explaining myself, trying to prove I'm not an idiot.
And the person who asked,
Ha
they're just sitting back watching you dance.
Exactly.
You've just described a classic power game. And you felt it physically because your brain recognized a threat. It realized, maybe subconsciously, that the conversation wasn't about the topic anymore.
It was a test.
It was a test.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, by scrambling and explaining, you failed it.
Thanks for the vote of confidence. But, I mean, that is the instinct, right? Defense. If someone questions me, my first impulse is to give them the answer, to show my work.
And that is the trap. The source material we are deep diving into today is all about this exact dynamic. It argues that when you're being tested by someone, the content of your answer, it just doesn't matter.
So what does matter?
What matters is who controls the frame.
The frame. Okay, we hear that term a lot, but let's really pin it down for this context, because the source makes a huge deal about this.
Think of the frame as the unwritten rules of the engagement.
Wow.
In every conversation, there's a frame. Usually it's a shared one where two equals talking about a problem.
Right.
But when someone tests you, they are imposing their frame. And in their frame, they're the judge and you are the defendant. Or they're the professor and you're the student who didn't do the reading.
So when I jump in and start explaining, well, we chose this strategy because of X, Y, and Z.
You've accepted their premise. You've walked right into their courtroom and taken the stand.
Wow.
And once you do that, you cannot win. Even if your facts are perfect, you've just reinforced their status as the judge. You're seeking their approval.
So this deep dive is about how to break that frame. The source we're looking at has 6 specific strategic responses. It calls them Machiavellian responses.
It does. And we should probably pause on that word.
Yeah, Machiavellian. It brings up, images of backstabbing, evil plots, Game of Thrones style cruelty. Are we teaching people how to be villains today?
It's a fair question. But in this context, Machiavellian doesn't mean evil. It means objective. It means seeing the machinery of the conversation without getting emotional about it.
So less about cruelty, more about competence.
Exactly. It's about having a cold head when everyone else is getting heated. Recognizing that you're in a game, and then playing that game by its mechanics, not by your feelings.
Because if you react emotionally...
You're just fuel for their fire. But if you react strategically, you can put the fire out, or even redirect it.
I like redirection. The source breaks these 6 strategies into a few different categories of moves. I want to start with the ones that feel the most active, almost physical. I was thinking of them as the judo moves.
Judo is the perfect analogy. These are for when someone comes at you with a lot of momentum, a strong critique, a loud challenge.
Okay, so the first strategy is honest agreement and shifting responsibility. My first reaction to that is that it sounds like you're just rolling over. Someone says, this plan is a disaster, and you say, you're right, don't you just look weak?
You do if you stop there, yes. But the shifting responsibility part is the dagger. The source suggests you validate their logic, but then you immediately hand them the burden of execution.
Walk me through how that would actually sound.
Okay, say you have a colleague. Let's call him Gary. And Gary loves to poke holes in your project timelines and meetings just to sound smart. This timeline is unrealistic. We're going to crash and burn.
Classic Gary. So instead of defending my Gantt chart...
You look him right in the eye and you say, Gary, there is logic in what you're saying. The risk is high. Tell you what, let's do it your way. Will you accept responsibility for leading the execution and the results?
Oh, wow. That puts Gary on the spot.
It changes the entire gravity of the room instantly. Most people who test you like that are what you'd call armchair critics. They want the status of being the critic, but they do not want the workload of being the leader.
What if he calls my bluff? What if Gary says, sure, I'll take it, and then just messes up the whole project?
And that is a risk you have to calculate, absolutely. But the source argues that, 90% of the time, the Garys of the world are just posturing. They're looking for a low-cost dominance win.
And you just made the cost incredibly high.
You're telling them to put their money where their mouth is, and usually you'll see them backpedal so fast. Oh, well, I'm too busy to run it. I was just pointing it out.
And just like that, the frame has shifted.
Exactly. Now you're the benevolent leader offering an opportunity, and they're the one declining it. You win.
That leads perfectly into the second judo strategy, because sometimes you can't just give away the project. The critique is smaller. It's more about nitpicking.
Ah, yes. The magnification strategy. This one is all about raising the stakes.
This one feels almost theatrical to me. The source says if someone attacks a small detail, you shouldn't defend the detail. You should blow it up into a massive systemic failure.
It is so counterintuitive. Our instinct is to minimize, right? Oh, it's just a small typo, or it's a minor budget variance.
But when you minimize, you're still playing defense.
You're still in their frame. So instead, you maximize, you blow it up. Let's say someone snipes at you about, I don't know, the font choice on a slide.
Okay.
Instead of saying, I liked Arial, you lean back and you say, if we're looking at it this way, we aren't just talking about a font. We are saying our entire branding identity is fundamentally flawed. Are you suggesting we need to reopen the discussion on our core corporate identity?
That is intense. You're taking a squirt gun fight and bringing a bazooka.
You are. And here's why it works. The attacker, they just wanted a cheap shot, a little dominant snack. By magnifying it, you're telling them, if you want to fight, it's going to be total war. It's going to take all afternoon, and we are going to question everything.
And nobody wants that meeting.
Nobody wants that meeting, so they are forced to be the one to back down. They'll say, whoa, no, it's not that big a deal. Let's just move on.
I love that. You force them to say it's not a big deal.
You make the conflict too expensive for them to afford.
Okay, so those are the judo moves. But sometimes the test isn't a direct attack. It's sneakier. It's passive-aggressive. The I was just asking crowd.
Right. And for that, we move to the spotlight strategies. These moves are designed to break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
You stop playing the character in their little play, and you talk to the actor.
Strategy number 3, questioning motivation.
This is one of the most powerful tools there is, I think. It relies on the fact that social norms usually say we have to pretend everyone has good intentions.
We all play along with the polite fiction.
We do. If someone asks a rude question, we pretend it was a valid one. This strategy just stops the conveyor belt. You pause the conversation about the content, you look at them, and you ask, and it has to be calmly, what result do you hope for with this question?
Woof! That feels incredibly confrontational. I think my heart would be pounding.
The delivery is everything. If you say it with anger, like, what is your problem? You lose. You look defensive.
So it has to be genuine curiosity.
The curiosity of a scientist looking at a bug under a microscope? You are just confused.
Oh.
Help me understand the goal here.
And why does that shatter the frame?
Because a test, a provocation, usually has no constructive goal. The goal is just to upset you. But they can't say that. They can't admit my goal was to make you feel small.
I'm just trying to undermine your authority, Bob. Yeah, not gonna fly.
So they have to instantly invent a fake constructive reason for a destructive comment. And they usually can't. They stumble, the silence stretches out, and the game is exposed.
It's like turning on the lights at a party when you shouldn't. It just gets awkward.
And that awkwardness is your shield. You've highlighted that their behavior has no valid purpose.
Okay, so strategy number 4 takes this a step further. The source calls it naming the test. This seems like it's for the person who loves plausible deniability, the gaslighter.
The person whose defense is always, I was just joking, or I was just playing devil's advocate.
Exactly. Why are you so sensitive?
Naming the test is the antidote. You explicitly describe the dynamic that is happening in the room. You might say, this sounds more like a provocation than a genuine attempt to find a solution. What's the specific concern?
Or even bolder, the source says, are you genuinely asking, or are you just testing me?
Think about what that does in a meeting. A gaslighter relies on their attack being covert. By naming it, calling it a test, you make it overt. You strip away their hiding place.
You're doing meta-commentary on the conversation.
You are. You're telling everyone else in the room, I see what's happening here and I'm not playing along. It creates a binary choice for the attacker. They either have to admit they're testing you, which they won't.
Or they have to drop the act.
They have to drop it and get back to business. And even if they deny it, oh, I'm not testing you. That's fine.
Why is that fine?
Because now they're on the defensive. They're explaining their innocence. The frame has flipped. You are now the one evaluating their intent.
I see. So even in their denial, I've taken the judge's seat. Okay, I'll accept that explanation. Let's proceed.
You're granting them the pardon. You remain in control.
All right, let's move to the final category. We've had judo, we've had spotlights, now we have the wall. These seem to be about, well, energy conservation.
These are the starving the fire moves. They're based on the psychological concept of extinction.
Extinction. Like dinosaurs.
Sort of like in behavior modification. If a rat presses a lever and gets a food pellet, it keeps pressing. If it presses the lever and gets nothing, eventually it just walks away. The behavior goes extinct.
So strategy number 5 is total calm, the no-fuel approach.
This is maybe the hardest one for people with egos, which is all of us. It involves giving zero emotional reward. Someone provokes you, and you just offer a brief neutral acknowledgement. I understand. Okay, noted. And then you immediately move on to the topic you want to discuss.
But doesn't that make me look passive? If someone challenges me and I just say, noted, don't I look like a doormat?
That's the fear. But look at it through the lens of the frame. If you argue, you're validating their point as worthy of debate. By saying noted and moving on, you're classifying their comment as noise. You're saying, this is not significant enough to derail my agenda.
It's an administrative dismissal.
It is the ultimate power move because it shows you are completely unaffected. The attacker wants a fight. They want the drama. Deny them the drama, and the game becomes boring for them.
I have a toddler, and this sounds suspiciously like how you're supposed to handle tantrums.
The psychology is identical. A tantrum needs an audience. Remove the audience, the tantrum loses its utility. Adult power games are just sophisticated tantrums.
Which brings us to the last one, number 6. The source calls it the thank you.
This is the polite cousin of the stone wall. It's recognition without concession.
Thank you for the feedback.
Or, I appreciate you speaking up. And then you continue exactly as you were planning.
This one feels like it requires a certain smirk, or at least a very steady gaze.
It's the bless your heart of corporate strategy. It is devastating because it simulates agreement. You're being polite. You're thanking them, but you are not doing what they want.
So you're giving them the attention they crave.
But denying them the influence they want. You're maintaining the frame of the benevolent leader. I value input from my team, but you are not stepping down from the podium.
You're treating them like a suggestion box.
And we all know what happens to those suggestions. But socially, what can they do? You thank them. If they keep pushing, they look like the aggressor. You've seized the moral high ground.
So looking at all 6 of these, shifting responsibility, magnifying the risk, questioning their motive, naming the test, total calm, and the polite thank you, there really is a common thread here, isn't there?
The thread is autonomy. In every single one of these, you are refusing to accept the premise that you are the one on trial.
It's about realizing that just because someone throws a ball at you, you don't have to catch it. You can just let it drop. Or ask them why they threw it.
And that is a huge shift for people who are, pleasers or high achievers. We're trained to answer every question. We're trained that if someone is upset, we have to fix it.
And these strategies argue that sometimes the most competent thing to do is to refuse to fix it.
It is. It's about teaching people how to treat you. If every time Gary makes a snarky comment, you spend 20 minutes justifying yourself, you have taught Gary that his comments are powerful.
You've given him the belly.
You've given him the pellet.
Yeah.
These strategies stop the pellets, and eventually Gary stops pressing the lever.
It sounds liberating, but also it sounds like it takes practice. I feel like the first time I try to say, what is your goal with this comment? I might just stutter.
You might. It feels unnatural because you're breaking social scripts. But the source really emphasizes that you don't have to be mean. You can be a warm, kind person and still use these tools. In fact, boundaries usually make relationships better.
Because people respect someone who can't be pushed around.
And noted sounds a lot more professional than a 5-minute rambling excuse. Competence is quiet. Insecurity is loud. These strategies help you stay in that quiet competence zone.
I love that phrase, competence is quiet.
So as we wrap up, we always like to leave our listeners with a thought to chew on.
Something to take into the real world.
The source ends with a conclusion that I think challenges all of us to look in the mirror. It says, simply, if a game provides no reward, people stop playing it.
Simple.
But the implication is, if people are still playing these games with you, if you have a rival who keeps poking or a family member who keeps criticizing,
It might be because I'm rewarding them.
it's worth asking, where in your life are you accidentally feeding the machine? Where are you confusing defending yourself with rewarding the attacker?
That's a tough pill to swallow. It means the solution isn't just about them changing, it's about me changing my reaction.
It puts the control back in your hands.
Yeah.
which is exactly where it belongs.
Something to think about the next time the temperature drops in a meeting. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Always a pleasure.